All right, our guys, gals, good morning. I hope everyone had a productive week and a good weekend. Today, we are going to look at project management. But before we do that, we are going to review our lecture of last week, which is conflict management. And I also sent everyone a link, a news link about the WHO's position on the status of this coronavirus, COVID 19. I hope everyone got time to take a read. If you didn't, in your spare time, please have a read because these are the type of current issues that are affecting us that will be looked at in your assessments as well. So we saw late last week, the WHO had announced that the coronavirus pandemic can now be estimated to be 1 in 10. What does that mean for everyone? You all understand what 1 in 10 means. I mean, it's simple. It means for any random group of 10 persons, at least one person amongst that group may be or can be coronavirus positive. So that's a pretty, that's a pretty, that's a number that would indicate clearly that it has become even more widespread than ever. And well, I sent another link to the institutional pharmacy group that then now speaks about the suggestion of rolling back of lockdowns because of its effect on the economies of countries. So these are very, very important current events that are happening. I want you to take a read and keep keeping yourselves updated and abreast to all the latest information coming from reputable sources. Um, and we have I'm sure you all can appreciate that we have learned from this pandemic that um, even the reputable sources, you should question, you should fact check, you should apply your own professional expertise and knowledge to information being told to you to verify that it's right and correct. So the the situation is getting I am estimating, and this is an opinion, I'm estimating that because of this the statistics of 1 in 10, we are going to have a reduction in the amount of lockdowns that we've been having. And this is, and I guess the WHO making these suggestions as well, um, will also push countries to ease on lockdowns because of the economic crisis coronavirus is now having on countries. And if you all want, I could send it to you all to regarding the economic crisis. But if you click on the link that I sent, you would see other articles. It's from Australia, an Australian news agency. So the good thing is that if you look at the death rate or the amount of persons succumbing to, unfortunately, they succumbing to the virus, and we always say one death is too many. Nobody's looking at it purely from a statistical perspective, but there have been advances in management, there have been advances in treatment of coronavirus infections, and that's why we've actually seen almost a half amount reduction of the death rate in earlier months of April, March, April, May, even June. We had death rates that were 10%, 12%, sometimes as high as 20% in some countries, and now it's hovering around 5%. So it means that the advances in treatments, and of course we know all the different things that have been spoken about for treating and managing coronavirus infections, COVID-19 infections, or SARS-CoV-2, all these different names it has. They have been producing real benefit, and more people are getting infected. If they do become hospitalized, they are walking out of the hospital. I can give an example of one of my friends and colleagues who was infected, and this is a guy who had two open heart surgeries. He was a former smoker, and he has a very hectic schedule, and he was infected, and thankfully he came out. He walked out of Hoover Hospital, um, coronavirus free. So I know the despair and the fear that most persons had, um, although those fears are real. There are cases where you can have so many comorbidities, um, and still be able to survive and beat this thing. So just wanted to discuss that with you all. It's hot new information, and again, I'm reminding everyone to keep abreast of all of the latest and current and factual news that is being presented with respect to the coronavirus pandemic. Because this, as I said, these are the type of things that we would want to ensure from a management perspective that you are aware, being aware of current trends and international events, as we've been saying. All right, so how has everyone been so far? Hope everyone is good. Um, we can go quickly now into looking at conflict management review. Just going through quickly. We define conflict on slide 2. Essentially, it's an incompatibility of ideas, a battle or contest of opposing forces, um, and conflict management is identifying and handling conflict in a sensible, fair, and efficient manner. I hope everyone appreciates that conflict is a natural, normal, inescapable part of life. It's something that will happen periodically, even in the best of relationships, even in the best of scenarios. Conflicts are going to occur from time to time, and how we manage it is important. I urge you all to appreciate that conflicts gives rise to persons understanding opposing preferences and values. So look at it as an opportunity when a conflict occurs to see someone else's perspective, to see someone else's view, to look at the situation through their glasses. All right. So some things that can lead up to conflict occurring: scarce resources, conflicting goals, personality conflicts, different values. And we spoke about conflicts of aims, conflicts of ideas, conflicts of behaviors. Also, not being as a manager. As a manager, how can you be part of creating conflict, taking all the credit from the staff? You appear as though you're the only one who's doing good. You being very judgmental. You're taking an individual versus a team approach. You're introducing changes without consultation of your team, even though you may be you may be the owner, you may be the boss, you may be the manager. And change must happen with consultation of your team. And again, it can You can look at it as from old management perspective versus new management perspective. The old managers would just create a change and then tell the workers the next day, this is what we do now. New management is where you discuss the change that's going to come beforehand and you explain and you now assist your workers in streamlining into the new changes. So poorly defined goals, divergent personal values, competition for scarce resources. Competition for scarce resources is a definite source of conflict, especially in the public sector setting. Unclear rules and lack of job description. So this is an example of where conflict can happen as a result of a human resource management issue, where your human resources department does not clearly state what your expectations are upon taking up the job, and your department head does not explain to you what your expectations are upon taking up the job. And I also gave an example of at times not understanding that although persons may be hired at the same level, one person may be tasked with a different function to another. So, without knowing without knowing what roles each other play, it can cause conflict in the sense that I might be looking at someone and say, but and they hire this man to do the same thing we're doing. Why he doing something different? So this is where management comes in to explain roles and functions to all members of the team. So when we have conflict in our organizations, we get stressed. We have a stressed organization. We see out the absenteeism, and as managers, I want you to look out for these things. Staff turnover happens often. Um, you have demotivation and non-productivity. And I want to look at staff turnover. I know for many years, persons would have looked at the food industry. In particular, we'll give our most favorite restaurant of all, which is KFC, right? And people looked at KFC being a temporary sort of job. But within the past decade, the management of KFC and Prestige Holdings, I'm assuming, they have done their work. And you would have seen in KFC's advertisements for work, talking about things like job security, uh, pretty decent compensation packages, health plans, I suspect they have as well. And you now see what I certainly observe as well, that persons make their jobs at KFC into a 4 or 5 year career span, sometimes even more. So um, having having a staff turnover is definitely a conflict, and when you can resolve that, even in the most basic of jobs, even in the sometimes you know the jobs that are looked at in a particular way, even those jobs can become very stable for the employees that are there if you remove conflict and issues that can cause conflict in the organization. All right, I hope we're clear so far. I know there's nobody in time. Good morning, so I guess everybody vexed with me this morning. Okay, and the five styles of conflict management, and we looked at it from the perspective of being assertive on the vertical and being cooperative on the horizontal. We spoke about avoiding, competing, accommodating, and collaborating, and compromising being a fair mix of all. And we said accommodating were people who give in to conflict. They are unassertive but very cooperative. So they would take the ideas from someone else, and try to keep the peace no matter what. Avoiders are those that they avoid conflict entirely. They they allow emotions to to take precedent. It's not a good long-term strategy. Then we have the collaborators that are both cooperative and assertive. And we might think I think this is the one that we need to have all the time because it's always seeking a win-win situation. It's a nice, comfortable option to go to when resolving conflict. However, it may not always be the best. And it's always situation dependent. Competing approach, or we know the competing approach is uh, yes, hi Shakila, good morning. Shakila, I have good things to say about you this morning. When I finish this conflict management review, I'll talk about it. Um, right, so competing takes on a win-lose approach where the person who is highly assertive is the one that's winning, one that intends to win, and the person who is not assertive is definitely on the losing end. So it can be used for emergency situations and when expediency is necessary. But again, take home uncompromising, of course, is the mix of all. Um, the take home point is there are no best ways to handle conflict. Each conflict is different and requires a different response. So it's situational. And just like leadership is something situational. And even some persons would want to say management as well is situational. So we like to look at management actually being style dependent, meaning I may have a particular style of management and still within good management practices, and may have another person may have a different style of management, but again, still within good management practices. So, um, so leadership is situational, and also conflict management is situational. Management itself is at times we would call it more style dependent. Yes, Vikash, you can relate to lack of job specification can affect a business in a private business set. Yes, yes. So um, as young managers, whether be it in private enterprise, whether be it in public enterprise, whether be it an entrepreneur, you being an entrepreneur and you're starting off somewhere, or you being a consultant, you job clarity is important. Expectations what is expected of the persons who you are hiring, and if you are getting hired, what are the expectations of the person who are hiring you? Make sure that that is clear so that you don't have a conflict of expectations. All right. Right, and so in preventing conflict, we looked at looking at personality traits of the person involved. Are they aggressive? Are they submissive? Are they assertive? Are they introverts? We spoke about using the best type of communication for preventing conflict using body language, the non-verbal, verbal 70-30, non-verbal 70, verbal 30 percentage. Looking at the place where conflict might be addressed. Sometimes conflict should not be addressed at the point in time, at the location that is happening. You know, perhaps if possible, you can you can pull the person or the group away from the physical location or the event that's actually happening to address the conflict. So the timing and the place. Um, Manage the language that you use when talking about conflict. Reduce technical jargon as much as is possible. And I'm reminding all of you young managers that technical jargon is something that you can talk amongst other managers. Technical jargon as pharmacists, you can talk amongst other pharmacists because they will understand. But technical jargon is never, ever, ever meant to be used for sounding good. In our communication, and you are supposed to know, communication is always meant to be simple and to be easily understood by the receiver. So if it is you're communicating and you're using a lots of technical jargon with a group that would not understand your jargon, then you are just complicating things. You are just making it difficult for the receiver to understand. Okay? So please reserve your jargon for when you're doing academic writing, and I'd love to see some nice academic writing with good technical jargon in there for your exams to demonstrate to me that you have a good grasp of the concepts that are being taught. However, if it is you're talking to your subordinates, there's no need for jargon. If it is you're talking to your boss and you're trying to impress your boss, then perhaps yes, you can use some jargon. But your boss also wants to see that you can understand something simply. All right. So your ability to explain something simply is golden, as you young folks like to use. It's pure gold, right? Saying something simply and explaining something simply is pure gold, and that's the aim that I want you all to get at. All right. Understand your work so much that you are now unconsciously competent. Let me put that in there. Unconsciously. Is that unconsciously? Okay, spelled correctly. Okay, there we go. Unconsciously competent. All right. I want you all to be unconsciously competent. I don't want you all to be BS artists. BS artists, and you all. I don't need to say this in the YouTube live. I want you all to be consciously competent individuals who can who can understand the technicality of an issue, but be able to explain it, be able to also relate, be able to solve it in as simple as manner as possible. All right. Um, maybe that's right. Right? Words may have different meanings for different people. Ask them to elaborate, of course. Of course. Um, I remember giving an example of a statement that might mean something slightly different to another person, but to you, it probably is an exact thing. So allow people to elaborate if it is they say something. Conflict is unavoidable. It's all part of the complexity of organizational relationships, and it is a healthy sign. It is not a negative process, and it reflects good dynamics amongst the workforce. So poorly managed conflicts provide or give way to with counterproductive outcomes, negative attitude, and problems. Well managed conflicts stimulate competition, legitimate differences, identify legitimate differences, and it's a powerful source of motivation. So, um, I hope that review was good. Do we have any questions regarding the review on conflict management and on the news article that I sent via WhatsApp? No, no questions. Everybody's very shy this morning. All right. So, as you may have seen, um, we can talk about this after. I'll talk about it before we go to the break. We can talk about it now. As you all may have noticed, I've started correcting your exams, your first assessment, and um, I no questions. Well, Shakila, remember I promised her to talk about it. So Shakila, um, your first assessment was done really well, and I'm doing this in public because it's always good to praise in public. This is a human resource um, strategy. Praise in public, punish in private. Praise in public, punish in private. So when you praise in public, it does several things. It gives the person who's getting the praise and a boost in confidence. It also gives the persons around who's looking at that person getting praise to be motivated as well, to be like, wow, congratulate them, and also um, look at perhaps reaching up to that level and learning as well from that person. So Shakila, you did quite good in your first assessment. And also is Precious with us this morning? Precious, are you there? Say hi, Precious, if you're here. Precious also did nice in your first assessment. I haven't completed. I hope to complete it tonight. Um, Hi, Precious. Yes, Shakila and Precious. Guys in class, uh, if you all want, Shakila and Precious, they did the exam answers were quite good. And I mean, I'm saying this because I want everyone to have high quality work, good quality work, get good grades. But understand that I want the range of your quality to not be a very low marks and very high marks. I want everyone to have pretty good marks altogether, right? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Um, I don't want us, I do not want the level of work in class to have to be really wide, as in you have some excellent quality students and then um, a large number of not of students that need some more assistance. So if we can all learn from each other and we can, get ourselves to have a little more tighter competition, yes, it's going to make my grading a little more difficult because when everyone is not producing high quality work, I will now have to look amongst the all of the high quality work to get the absolute best one, right? But the fact would remain is that everyone is producing high quality work. So that's what I was trying to say. Sorry. I want everyone to be producing high quality work and everyone to be producing high quality answers. And give me some extra work to now find amongst all of you the real, but the absolute best to so yes, we would have um, high grades and low grades, but even the low grade is still considered to be, high quality. So, Precious and Shakila, you all, I was really very nice, very happy to read through your answers. I think one of you all had the I don't know if you all had my answer sheet, but it was well done. So well done to Shakila, well done, Precious, and I hope your colleagues and classmates can ask you how you went about answering your exam questions, and we can all learn. All right, so very good. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Um, Good, good, great. So I'm going to continue now with Shakila. No, thank you. I seen Precious saying thank you. All right, okay. I'll just kidding. Good. So, no questions on conflict management. And let me just say before I move on that for those of you who may not have gotten a grade that you wished, or may not have gotten a very high grade, that's okay. That's okay. My intention is not to fail anyone, but it would mean that you now have room for improvement, and you need to perhaps look at your answering um, style in a different manner. And again, learn from your colleagues and share everyone to share their information and share their knowledge. All right. So that aside, let's continue now on to project management. So open up your lectures on project management, and I believe for the last 4 weeks or so, we every time we talk, we always talk about high performance teams, and I always talk about project managers, essentially a high performance team members, and a project team usually is a team of high performance persons. So, and I know we have said before that companies and organizations are going in that direction of getting things done through projects, right? So, let's go. Project. A project is a temporary endeavor having a defined beginning and end, usually constrained by a date, but which can be by funding or deliverables, and is done to achieve particular goals and objectives. So project management is very goal based, very objective based, and I hope you all remember that I was saying that management by objectives is very similar to project management, and you'll see some similarities here as we go along. right? So the primary challenge of project management is to achieve all of the goals while honoring the preconceived project constraints. Meaning, when you accept a project and your project has a particular outcome, it's going to come with certain parameters in which you have to work with. And as the slide says, preconceived constraints. All right. So I remember asking in one of the last classes in an exam, how do we go about implementing something by and but doing it and not interfering with your day-to-day operations. And that's usually how you would see so many projects happening, that are renovation type projects or projects that occur whilst the organization is still being run. So the organization cannot shut down; it must still operate. But there are certain things that has to get done. So project managers are usually pretty good in getting things done without affecting too much the organization's day-to-day operations. Now, I am sure you can think of examples where persons may have been hired to do maybe some work at home, or maybe to do some work at your workplace or at the university, and they make a real mess of it. I'm sure you can imagine. I'm sure you can think of examples. And I, 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 I want you to understand that these persons are not project management professionals, clearly, because project management professionals are schedulers. They are usually very precise persons um, that are they're scientific, they're logical, and they are a special breed. Project managers are usually a special breed of managers that come from a high performance type DNA and characteristic. So, what is project management? The project never fails because of tools and methodology. The project fails because of people. And we did human resource management just last week or week before. Project fails not because of tools or methodology. Project fails because of people. So, although you might have a very good system in place, who is operating the system? If the system is operated by persons who simply incompetent, um, that may be demotivated because of conflict, you could tie in all of these things, um, then your project is going to fail. So, understand that the human resource is so important, not just for day to day operations, but even within your projects. So project management has become commonplace. The need for speed, rate of innovation has increased. Um, a special organization to treat with the realities of globalization, correct? And more work in organizations driven by teams. Because you have more and more, you would see guys and gals, when you become a manager, when you become a manager in your field, or you become a supervisor or manager generally, you would see that you would have members of your team, okay, members of your staff, some of which are high achievers and high performers, and some aren't. And at times, especially in cases of for expediency and for quality, you might select certain members of your staff and create them and make them into a project team to get certain things done. You would see it sometimes unconsciously. You would be going towards this group of persons in your team to get certain things done, and that's because they are usually clinical in their execution. They are usually um, meticulous in their mannerisms, and they get the job done. All right. So um, sorry, more work is driven by teams, right? The project structure has some advantages. Um, Team members assign 100% to their projects and they don't have diversions that other structures create. So the project team members are usually very focused. They are highly receptive to new ideas The success of the team totally depends on the success of the project. And what is that? That second point. That second point. The success of the team members totally depends on the success of the project. What philosophy does that remind us of? We did it in our very first lecture, which took us 2 weeks. The success of the team is is highly dependent on the success of the project. Well, sorry, the success of the project is highly dependent on the success of the team members, or vice versa. Let me see if anyone can figure this one out. This should have been fresh in your minds. The success of the team is dependent on the success of the project. It's an S word. I'll give you all a hint. It's an S word. Come on, guys. People are sleepy this morning. Because you want to make a go? I know I've been losing students here from reaching up to a high of 23 students now down to 17. What's going on? Am I that boring on a Monday morning? What's the word? What's the word? What is this? What does that second point make you think of? We did it in lecture one. Or is it now everybody watching through lecture one looking for S words? I'll give you an accent. It's an S word. This is going to make it too easy. It's an S word and it's a TV station. Synergy. Yes, Leandra. Synergy. Yes. Synergy. So if you understand synergy is, the sum of the parts is not greater than the whole. So yes, Faria. Yes, Leandra. Yes, synergy. Right. So that's what I was thinking. And as we go through different topics and different materials, I want you all to be able to link them to previous lectures and make sure it all makes sense. Right? All ideas in the true project team, sorry, all ideas are welcome and all ideas are discussed. Right? Project teams are usually self-contained, with every member accountable for deliverables. Every member accountable for deliverables. And the point of all ideas are welcome and all ideas are discussed. It's very important. It means from the start, if you have a project team that has been compiled, all of the information that your team members can bring to the table must be welcome and must be brainstormed and looked at. It should not be dismissed in off the bat because project teams are usually, as I said, high performance individuals that would be able to look at the merits of things that come to their attention, looking at something from a different perspective. All right. In a project team, you might have the civil engineer might come up with an idea that's very different to perhaps the finance member of the team. In terms of purchasing or how the costing of a project. So all ideas are welcome. It's multidisciplinary, and although yes, there may be conflict, and it goes back to what I just reviewed in conflict. Conflict gives us an opportunity to look at something from a different perspective. All right, back to it. Yes. Right. So the project-driven structure has advantages. It has great adaptability. Right? Project manager essentially schedules for their team members without having to worry about creating scheduling conflicts due to other assignments. It has better cost control, and the project manager controls all resources. So the project manager controls all resources. In a project, the project manager controls all the resources. And if you go into an organization and you see something that might be a little different to that, then I want you to take note of it. If you are engaged in a real project, if the project manager is given all the resources that's agreed upon to get the project completed. It's not it's not as though resources are outside or elsewhere that are unattainable by the project management team to access. They are in control of all the resources. They don't have to ask um, permission for use of certain organization resources. They are supposed to have access to all that they need, when they need, how they need. Okay, so that's where project management would now be creating somewhat of a bypass of the bureaucracy of the organization. So you can move from getting things have to go through these different steps to get at. Whereas in project management, you sit on the outside of it and you can access anywhere you want to at any given point in time. I like how I'm using this word here as a demonstration screen. Right. So some disadvantages, however, with project management is that the stability is a bit poor. The career path, there is no real vertical movement per se, but projects usually are very exciting, and people who work on projects always wish to work on more projects because it's a high energy movement, it's a high energy event, and it also gives them a wider knowledge base, right? However, it does have poor stability. There is no clear career path, and there are few opportunities to develop special skills. So the functional manager versus the project manager. Um, the functional manager is usually a specialist in the field that they manage. So, for example, if you were to become a functional manager in a pharmacy, whether it be public or private, because you're a pharmacist, you are a functional manager. That does not mean that you can't be a project manager as well. But for this lecture, a, a project manager may not be a specialist in the field. Understand that. A functional manager is a specialist. They are usually a direct, sorry, direct technical supervisor that have subordinates. And the functional manager is the person who again the specialist in the field who would understand the core principles involved in that type of field. Whereas the project manager is a generalist and they are management specialists. They are not a pharmacist, they are not a doctor, they are not I'm saying not necessarily. So project managers can have their first degrees and they can have their professional qualifications. But they can also have none of those. They could have done management from university first degree all the way to postgraduate PhD masters, and project management is all they did. So the project managers do not need to be a specialist in the field, but they must be a generalist with a wide background of experience and knowledge. They can oversee multifunctional areas with their own specialists, and they can, generally put pieces of the puzzle together to make one coherent whole. Again, that talks about systems, the different pieces of the puzzle making one coherent whole. And the project manager is responsible for organizing staff and budgeting and everything regarding in a project. Whereas a functional manager isn't doing any budgeting. Well, for total organization budget, the functional manager would take their orders from their superiors, whereas a project manager is given a mandate, usually from the CEO. or usually from the board, usually the CEO, to get certain um, objectives achieved. The skills of the project manager. Project manager must have. Let me see if I can go through these now. Yeah, we could do these. Do these and take a break at slide 14. All right. Um, so the skills of the project manager. The project manager must have strong team building skills and always set a positive tone. And this is pure management 101, but I also want to put in there as well some leadership. Setting the positive tone is good leadership as well. So you must be able to build your team well and set that positive tone for the rest of the team members to get the project done. They must be structured and they must have good alignment. They must be organized, disciplined, have strong interpersonal skills, meaning that they can interact with all members of the team and all members, and they can interact well with the client, which is the organization that would have hired them to come and get this project done. And they must have good communication skills, knowing when to and whom to communicate information to. They are highly disciplined, completing each task of the project completely. And when you look at certain construction projects that we have had, you all may be familiar. We have had two major highway interchanges that were done. The Kirap interchange recently and the Grand Bazaar interchange. Those were two really huge projects that were done, and each step of the project must be done completely and properly in order for the other one to build on it. And this is where project management, these are the areas where project management comes in, especially you'll see it a lot in construction. When next you're driving by a government-based construction site or any construction site that's usually a large project, take a look. They usually have a huge banner, a huge banner that would state the name of the project, the time the project is expected to complete, and the contractors. And you would see a project management team usually. You would see a civil engineering team. You would see an architectural team, and you would see several teams that comprise the that would be used to ensure that the project is completed properly. So project management is a separate discipline, um, sub-discipline of management. So there's a guy by the name of West. He had 7 habits for the project manager to begin with the end in mind. And this is not just for project management, ladies and gents. This is generally in life when you are engaging in anything. And if you can look at the way you execute on things from a project perspective, and if you do that, chances are you'll have a high degree of success in things that you do. Begin with the end in mind. Have a vision. Beginning with the end in mind is, what's the vision? Think about how you want it to be. Think about how or may not be how you want it to be, but think about what your client wants out of the project. Your client wants to take this room and at the end of it make it into a child friendly room. So at the end of the project, this room must be a child-friendly room, and you start with that now, and you can go backward. But child-friendly room would mean what? Would it be colors? Would it be toys? Would it be ventilation? What all of these different things that would fall into place. So begin with the end in mind. Think win-win, and you need to be skillful to think win-win. And guys and gals, what did we do in conflict management that was win-win? Win-win was collaborating. Win-win was collaborating, listening to other views, while asserting your own views. And this is a real characteristic of a project manager or a project team member. They're usually good collaborators. All right. So think win-win. Put in things first. Set your priorities correct and right. Get your priorities set straight. First seek to understand, then to be understood. In other words, read the material. Understand for your own self what is expected of you, what needs to get done. Then try to communicate to your team, then try to communicate with your suppliers so that they can understand you better, and that makes you a skilled negotiator. Be at all times proactive, ask for information. Don't be reactive. Always try and be ahead of your project. Always synthesizing meaning, always trying to make sense of information, always trying to create new pathways, always taking information that exists and sometimes creating new ideas, always synthesizing, always sharpening the sword, always making sure that you are on point, you are well aware of new techniques, constantly learning and upgrading. What does that remind you of, ladies and gents? Constantly learning and upgrading. What does that remind you about with respect to organizations and management? What type of organization do we look at that? I don't want to just let the cat out of the bag just said. I'll just see the answer. Tell me. That's right, Precious. Learning organization culture. That's right, Precious. Very good. Yes. Yes. So that's what West is talking about. Um, Projects succeed because we have executive management support. What is executive management support, ladies and gents? What is executive management support, ladies and gents? It's also called executive management support is also called Kavita P. Are you with us this morning? Kavita, Kavita, Kavita P. Kavita R. Are you with us this morning? Um, Samantha C. Samantha A. Are you with us? I just call on names that I just remember from the top of my head, right? So forgive me. Um, what about Alexis? What about Teresa? What about Jahil? Executive management support is also called nobody. All right. I'm waiting. Bikash. Executive management support is also called. Google must be really sticking this morning. I don't know if Tracy, who is in this class, who else is in this class? There was a student that I was the first person who I corrected, Nishad Ali. Are you here? Nishad, right? Yeah. Jesse Rakal. I'm remembering some names here. Are you here, Jesse? Are you here, Nishad? Nobody's answering. I can't believe I have to give this answer. Or is it because everybody's desperate for a break now? All right, I'll give the answer. Alexis Joseph present. Well, tell me the answer, Alexis. Need more coffee. Oh God. I don't know. I know. I went to bed. I went to bed at 3 o'clock this morning looking at all the papers there. So no answers. Executive management support is C suites. Yes, Katrina. It is a C suite, which is the okay. Yeah, Alexis, you disconnected for a second. All right. Okay. Katrina, yes, the C-suite is the executive management support, but I'm saying executive management support is also called. We also use another term for that. Come on, you're taking more. You're taking more time than I allotted for this answer. In five, four, thank you, Vikash. Management will. Yes, management will. Executive, yes. Top management is executive management, Alexis, and their support is called management will. So, for projects to succeed, we need to have executive management support, user involvement, persons who are involved, who are in the who the project is affecting, that they're using it as well. An experienced project manager, of course, clear business objectives, minimize scope, meaning you don't have a whole lot of things to get done. You just have you're very focused on certain things. Standardized infrastructure, um, basic requirements, a formal methodology, reliable estimates, and skilled staff. And the project management uses these nine skill areas: integration management, and all of these are subspecialties of management, okay? Especially in terms of construction as well, where you look at quality, risk, and cost. These are subspecialties in construction management. So, time management, procurement management, human resource management, communication management, quality, cost, and risk. All right, so we're going to take a break now. Any questions so far? Break now and return 10:15. Okay, good. I got a like on the video. Thanks. So we take a break now. If there are no questions right now, immediately, and we shall return at 10:15, and we will continue project management.